Good afternoon on what is a bright, warm and sunny day. It is Wednesday, September the 14th. I've got a nice hot cup of tea. And a parcel to unbox. So let's find out what is in here. This, which promises swords, potions, spells, battles, maiming, killing. So what could be in here? I don't know. Oh, let's have a look. Well, I do know. It's this. So let's slide this open. It is Mazes and Monsters. It's newly available on DVD, and this is the special edition. So let's get this open and find out what we've got here. Now, here we go. This is Tom Hanks' Mazes and Monsters limited 40th edition, 40th anniversary edition. So, laughably clueless, Dan Jolin, Dicebreaker, promises swords, poison spells, battles, maiming, killing, adapted from the best-selling novel by Rona Jaffe, which was loosely based on a tragic true story. The made-for-television Mazes and Monsters was an early role for two-time Oscar winner Tom Hanks. Hanks plays Robbie, who's interested in role-playing games, role-playing game called Mazes and Monsters, and clearly an analogue for Dungeons and Dragons, yes, takes a dark turn when the line between fantasy and reality starts to blur. Presented in HD for the first time anywhere in the world, this 40th anniversary edition is a must-buy for Tom Hanks fans and RPG enthusiasts. Special features include exclusive audio commentary with RPG legends Seth Skorkowski, Scott Dorward, Joe Trier, Veronica Escamilla Brady, and Irgun Falve. 8-page essay from film and games writer Dan Jolin, English subtitles for the hearing impaired. So, yeah, so let's have a look inside. And what we have is the essentially introduction, and this will put it in context, essentially referring to the Dungeon Master, the book by William C. Deere, which would have come out at about 1980, 81, something like that. Copy of the book itself. I think I do actually have a copy of that book somewhere, and then just further notes and so on. So, let me see. Okay, so a role-playing, essentially a real-life tragedy behind the D&D inspired movie. Now, we have had, when it comes to some films about role-playing games, completely missed the point for the most part. The Dungeons and Dragons movies were terrible, both of them. The best representation of role-playing to date so far has kind of been in Stranger Things, and even the representation in E.T. back in '82 actually wasn't that bad. But this was, to be fair, terrible. Because really what it focused on was somebody being ill, and blaming the game itself as the cause. Now, this came out of a story, in fact true, of James Dallas Egbert III, who disappeared from a 16-year-old math student who disappeared. I think it was Michigan University, and there was a national hunt for him. The author of the book, the Dungeon Master, William C. Deere, it was the detective, got involved at the time, and ultimately his involvement would lead to him writing this book. and exposing the story further. But notably, one of the things that was some of the clues seemed to be focused around the events below part of the university, where they had steam tunnels and there appeared to be sort of like some kind of role playing going on down there rather than being around the table. So essentially early LARPing, if you will. And so that was what was seized upon as the cause and the problem. And the interesting thing is that it brought Dungeons and Dragons a lot of attention, because that was the game it was sort of vaguely based upon, and there was no other role-playing game out at the time that the mass media were really aware of. So you actually had interviews being given by Gary Gygax talking about this, saying, this is what the game is, it's not like this, it's not like that, that sort of thing. But in the minds of most people, because of the story, because of what happened, the tragedy that happened to James Dallas Egbert III, that was what the association, that was in their mind. And Rona Jaffe essentially took the story, what happened, the events, and turned it into a book, Mazes and Monsters, and that was made into a television film as an early starring role for Tom Hanks. I'm going to be interested to really sort of like see this again and just see how bad it is. But actually, in some ways, what I'm actually really looking forward to is not actually just seeing how bad it is, it's watching it with the commentary from from several people, Seth Skorkowski and Scott Dorward, both of whom I know and have either gamed with, or actually I've actually played in a couple of several of his scenarios. He's run at conventions. He's a really good game master, or I should say keeper, because he runs a lot of Call of Cthulhu, and he's a good Call of Cthulhu author as well. So their input is going to be, I'm sure, interesting, funny, amusing, and just to find out, what they think of it, and what they think, about a storyline taken from the headlines 40 years ago, looking at that with the hindsight of 40 years of development in terms of the hobby and our awareness of the hobby, especially in light of the awareness of the hobby of the last 10 years, where, really the last 8 years, with the release of Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, it's essentially, and the appearance of Dungeons & Dragons on Stranger Things. And the combination of those two has really pushed the role-playing game and the role-playing game hobby into the mainstream, where it's accepted now. So that's really going to be interesting to see it from that kind of hindsight. But ultimately, you are watching a relic of the 40 years ago, and people's false perceptions of it. So yeah, that's going to be really interesting to watch and even do a review of. So that's Mazes and Monsters, the 40th anniversary limited edition Blu-ray. I look forward to viewing with trepidation, because I don't actually remember. I thought the film was interesting, but I knew it wasn't. And when I was watching it, when I was not quite 15, a little bit older, because trying to think, it would have been shown in the UK maybe once or twice. I would have had a poor view of it then, because it didn't portray my hobby in a particularly well light, or good light, and neither did, to be fair, did the Dungeon Master, the book by William Deere himself necessarily, although he did try. I've got to admit, he did try there. but I mean, arguably that's one of these two books really kind of, you know, I mean, you know, so, you know, essentially, so, I mean, these two books arguably are probably the first two books to be written about the hobby from outside of the hobby. Plenty of books being written about the hobby from inside it, but these two are from outside it. So it's going to be interesting to see their perspective, sort of like portrayed on film as it was back in 1982. Anyway, I hope you have enjoyed this unboxing in the Nook. If you have, then please do click on the button down below, like button down below. And if you've got any comments or feedback, I appreciate you taking the time to post those. And lastly, if you want to be alerted to yet more unboxings in the Nook, where you will see me out here with a package containing normally a book or a game, but at this time a DVD, which I will talk about to the best extent of my knowledge for roughly 10 minutes or so, all of course accompanied by a nice hot cup of tea. Then please do hit that subscribe button down below. In the meantime, thanks again for watching. Be back again soon with another unboxing in the Nook. Bye for now.